Self-aware millennial.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Self-Aware Millennial. I am your bliggity black host, J.Mix. My pronouns are she, her, but I accept they, them if that's your style. In honor of the commercialized Day of Love, Valentine's Day, we will be acknowledging Black love in the 21st century, which has many more dimensions than our community chooses to accept as real and valid. What do you mean, J-Mix? What do you mean? You already know. I'm talking about that unconventional love that everyone knows exists, but just chooses to suppress. I'm talking about that attractive person that you have an electrifying connection. Electrifying connection.
Sometimes it's the flying.
Yeah, electrifying connection with, but you're also already booed up with someone else that, would hands down basically break up with you. If they would have ever find out that you as much had feelings for them or something like that. And I'm also, if y'all not trying to figure this out, I'm basically just talking about polyamory, which means many loves. There's more shame around polyamory in the African American community because our roots in Christianity and conservative values throughout pretty much, I say once we, she's like, no.
Did you see me reach for the pen?
Yeah, no, I saw the eye roll, but I'm here. I'm with you on this. But yeah, our roots in Christianity and conservative values here, they basically came from when we came over from the slave ships. I mean, the motherland, we weren't doing this kind of stuff, but we're going to get to that. Before we really get into it, however, I want to give out two disclaimers. One, I would highly suggest y'all check out episode 23, Non-Monogamy for Dummies, where Dylan and I gave a crash course on all things non-monogamy, including terms, misconceptions, and why we find discomfort with it. And then the second disclaimer is that, okay, and this is also for I don't know why it is the Black community right now, but I always find that polyamory and polygamy are used interchangeably and they're not realizing it. And so people would be saying polygamy and I'm like, y'all are saying polyamory, but I need to let y'all know that polyamory and polygamy are not the same thing. Polygamy is one person with many wives. And the opposite of that is polyandry, which a lot of people don't nearly use as much because, male dominated society. Polyandry is one person with many husbands. Polyandry and polygamy fall under the polyamory umbrella, which falls under the non-monogamy umbrella, which is the umbrella that we talked about in episode 23. So go check it out before you check out the rest of this. Or, we might be able to help you out a little bit, but we're going to work out and just make sure that y'all can at least understand the terminations that we're going to be discussing throughout this. Cause there's so many, and I have to remember that people don't know what this necessarily means. And I try to take the listeners, how can I say it's best? I tried to make sure that the listeners are at least educated enough to know what we're talking about, because I can't assume that everybody knows everything that's in my head. Because literally, I've been studying polyamory and just non-monogamy just through my own individual research for the past 4 to 5 years. So if someone else has not done that, I have to assume that they don't know, and I have to just reiterate. So with all that, y'all been hearing a lovely, beautiful voice in the background. I wanted to introduce y'all to Ashley Jemini. Oh, look at her. She's just Yep.
That's me.
Yeah. Ashley is a yoga instructor, and she's done 7 years of teaching experience. And you probably, especially if you're in New Orleans, you definitely know about her at this point because she's amazing. And right before we actually started recording, she instructed me through 3 slow, deep breaths just to get myself ready and excited and started and relaxed before we get this, because I should also mention that usually before I start most of my episodes, I get really anxious, and that's just, unfortunately, I don't want it to be my personality, but that's just kind of who I am. And I'm trying to just be more intentional and understand where it's coming from. So I think Ashley has definitely been one of those people that's kind of helped me realize, you can take your time. Everybody around you is here for you. They're going to wait for you to be ready whenever you're ready. And they're going to stand by you no matter if it takes 5 seconds or 5 minutes. So that's how I have to kind of, think about it. But I should also mention Ashley has like 12 years of clinical psychology.
Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah. So, and I took like one intro course to psychology, and then I believe I had to leave like I had to leave about half semester in for some weird reason. And I wish I could have taken it more, just because I really like, as y'all know, I just like studying the thoughts of people with different experiences. So enough about me. I want Ashley to kind of discuss, who she is as a person outside of your profession, if you feel like it. But yeah, tell the listeners, who you are, who you is.
Absolutely. One of my favorite mantras for years now is, and this is in regards to you talking about your so-called anxious personality, like that is who you are right now. The old song, you are everything and everything is you.
Mm.
And you are everything and everything is you. That's a principle of unity consciousness. We are all divine reflections of God's light. And I like keeping that in mind because it gives us so much flexibility. Like in one of the books that I'm going to mention, they talk about your values as attributes that you are practicing rather than features of who you are.
Yeah.
So that when you mess up, it's not like an identity crisis. It's not like, what? I don't get angry. It's like, okay, I expressed that aspect of myself, or I'm not an anxious person, or like, I'm an anxious person. You are everything and everything is you.
Oh.
So that being said, it's okay. Take your time.
Oh, sorry. No, keep going. I'm gonna try to be quiet.
You're right. Yeah. Speaking of the reactions, like if anybody saw me, just sort of like hide my gleeful exuberance when he talks about the polyamorous terminations.
Oh,
y'all covered a lot of terminations in episode 23.
Yes,
but I giggled like that because I love when you say termination instead of terminology. It reminds me of I think that is so cute. Like free language.
Yes.
Like, break the shackle, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Look, I know what you said.
Yeah.
I know what the hell you meant.
It's the way I said it. You understood what I meant, even though I didn't say it right. I know. Or I didn't say the right terminology.
I follow you. Yeah, there's like a box on my screen I want to X out of. But so my identifiers, we are everything and everything is we. But I identify with she, her pronouns. I also accept they, them, we, us, that unity consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah. And if I'm like not sure about somebody's gender, I'll usually default to, well, first of all, it's a great idea to ask.
Yes.
You can always ask. Another thing is I say we or us because you're just a reflection of me, right?
Oh, yes. I love it.
What?
Oh, no, I was just saying, I think I usually just default to they, but I like we too. That's great. I think for some people, it's just one of those. I mean, there's the people like us that understand that, but there's people that don't understand that may get confused. But it's all about, destigmatizing the mind. So
destigmatize biodiversity, y'all. Like, look, white supremacy, specifically the imperialist, capitalist, ableist, heterosexist, white supremacist patriarchy has everybody thinking like there's only one way to be. Amen. And if you go to any ecosystem, like if you just go to any one plant, there's like thousands of biomes, like inside your own body. You've got microorganisms, we got cells being birthed and dying. Like there's just so much diversity in nature. It's silly that we as human beings have adapted to placing ourselves into these limiting boxes, but these are some of the boxes that I identify with. I am a proud Southern cis woman. I am also very actively queer poly woman, specifically panamorous, because I was bisexual for a while, but then the NBs, man, the non-binary folks, they out here and they can get it.
Yes.
Shorty swing my way. I'm pretty equally attracted to all kinds of people. Super masculine men, super masculine women, super feminine men, super feminine women. The really, really androgynous folks. Like androgyny was my jam during puberty. So hopefully now the children have a better understanding of like what the options are as far as like who you want to be sexually, romantically, and just like as a person, like who you want to be.
Yeah.
Than we did, because we'll be talking about the relationship escalator, but first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes the baby, and the baby carriage was like the one path that we had to follow. And clearly that's not the case anymore.
No, it's not. And it never was. It just someone said it was and everybody believed them. Like, what was it? This is quote. I think it had to, one of our revolutionaries out here said something along the lines of do not follow your enemy blindly or something like that. You know, like don't let your enemy tell you who your enemies are.
Ooh, girl.
You know,
that's very real. That's very fucking real. And that brings me back to what the face I made and what I wrote down when you were talking about like our roots in the African American community making us sort of really narrow-minded. And I do want to add, we got to talk about homophobia at some point in this conversation.
Yes, we do.
I know you've got your poly agenda and I'm here for it, but we take for granted as out queer people that a lot of Black folks are still not for it. And I'm like, how long do you want to stay enslaved? Because these Christian roots, well, you said roots in Christianity. I mean, I said, you mean the Christianity that was literally raped into us?
Right.
That was literally shoved down our throats?
Yep. Yeah, that one. I think I was definitely talking about that one.
Those ain't my roots. That's a perm.
Yep.
It's literally a perm. It's us permanently altering our culture to fit in with the, heterosexist, capitalist, blah, 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 patriarchy, white supremacy.
Yeah.
We're literally not going to survive as a species unless we start to dismantle these systems. So Black people, get it together. Hey. Examine why you believe what you believe. And understand that you have the freedom to keep what serves you and let go of what doesn't. Because as far as we know, I don't think we only have one life to live, but we only remember one at a time. Like, how do you want to spend your time on this earth? And your intro was so good. It reminded me of the Erykah Badu song, How Can I Want You For Myself When I'm Already Someone's Girl? I'm like, monogamy kills. Monogamy destroys lives.
Yes.
Compulsory monogamy, because it does work for some people. But if your partner really loves you, wouldn't they want you to be happy?
Right. What is love? What is love? What is it really, though? And I think in the context of what we are discussing, I mean, polyamory is just that. I think it's a larger spectrum of what it is. Like, think of love. Okay, let's think of love right now as like the earth. Or I should say monogamous love as just the earth, right?
Okay.
And then like polyamorous love is basically the whole universe, because you have so many options. You have there's like it's infinite almost,
Right. I like that. I also like a water analogy where with monogamy, you're like, I only have the capacity for 8 ounces of love.
Yes.
And there's this, one of my favorite resources was a comic book or a collection of comic strips by Kim Chi Cuddles called Ask Me About Polyamory. And in one of the strips, it was like, oh, sorry, I might have 4 grandparents, but I only love one of them. Or you have a child and you have another child, and it's like, well, one of y'all got to go. Right? Or I have a partner and then we have a child, and it's like, oh my God, I love you more than anything I've ever loved before in my life. And then we have this child and it's like, oh my God, I love them more than anything I've ever loved in my life. It's almost as if there's no limit how much we can love.
Right. Come on. Yeah.
Hypothetically,
Yeah.
we're still the data suggests that we can love more than a couple people.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I don't know if it's, oh God, I don't know if it was Dylan or if it was the one I did with Bats, Martin Bats Bradford. But we basically just kind of talking about, it's like I don't know how to okay, I don't know how to describe this. So I'm gonna.
It's like trying to put the ocean in a glass.
Yeah. Yes.
It's
Absolutely.
Really, it's very that. It's like trying to put the ocean in a swimming pool.
Yes.
And like I know one one happily married couple. They've got 2 great kids, and a girlfriend. Look.
Yes.
And the husband is a musician, and like since day one, they've been married for like 10, 11 years now. Mm-hmm. But since day one, my friend, his wife, has always been like, yo, when you're out on tour, please flirt with other women. Like, it's only going to get you all hot and bothered and bring you home to me, like, with better sex.
Exactly.
If you want to like go, dip your feet in some special new waters or whatever, great. I know where your kids live. You'll be back. Look, like, you love me. You love me. You own half of my property. We have 2 beautiful children together. Like, he'll be back. People.
Yeah.
Look, if it's real, if the connection is really real. And again, like, that's the difference between compulsory monogamy and choosing to be with somebody.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happily divorced. Is this still me introducing myself?
Yes, that's okay. That's okay. We can have a long introduction. They need to know.
No. Maybe they do need to know. I'm happily divorced. I got married when I was about 24 to the first person who asked, because as a Black woman,
person who asked. Hold on. Let's say it one more time. But to the first person who asked, for everybody out there. Okay. I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay.
I'm not doing that anymore. Don't just send me your marriage proposals expecting a yes. I'm a different person now. And I married him because, one, I was misled when he said that his grandfather was Black. And turns out he's like fully, like white and Dutch. But his father's stepfather was Black. And I didn't find that out until there was already a ring on it.
Oh, man.
Like, about that ring, I have never been, before or since, less sexually harassed in these streets than when I was wearing an engagement ring.
I wonder why that is.
What's the third thing I wanted to say?
That's ridiculous, though. That's so ridiculous.
I mean, it's true. Facts are facts. Yeah. And he was good enough. Like, we get all these messages that like, oh, marriage is hard work. And once the ring was on my finger, I was committed. I was like, okay, we are committed to becoming a family. And that's really what I wanted, was a family. And I still had this kind of narrow definition of what family meant.
Right.
So we are going to expand that in the actual podcast portion of the podcast.
No, you're good. No, this is wonderful. As y'all can see, this is why I'm so happy that I have Ashley on this specific episode. We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago just about this. Like, we were out there for like 5 hours just talking and talking and talking. So I was like, and at this point I had already said, okay, Ashley, you're going to be on my podcast. But like, like just knowing that we could easily talk 5 hours just about just being our Black poly selves and just like, engaging and just interacting with what our experiences have brought us to, so that like us together can now like, combine what we know and like just have our same mutual, I don't know, mutual. I cannot think today. I cannot think about the right word. It's so you
take
hit
a
something.
breath.
This is like a okay. You're right. Whew.
Yeah.
I just think our mutual thinking on things, and I think what I was telling Ashley before was that I haven't really met any other Black, well, that I know of, Black poly femmes, because not everyone is as open about it as you are or as I am. So I'm like, okay, yeah, we got to get you on here. And I want to shout out to Lex too for bringing me into contact with Ashley.
Yes. I also want to add Black queer poly selves.
Yes. Sorry. There's so many.
And I know. And I take my queerness for granted at this point. But ever since I came out when I was about 21, it was not lost on me that just being out, whether it's about queerness or polyamory, is a revolutionary act. And visibility is so important because you don't know who's listening and you don't know how they're feeling. And even if they're not queer or poly, we need to normalize this shit. Seriously.
Yes.
And as femme presenting women, I said it at the coffee shop, how if you are considered attractive to men, it is assumed that you are only exclusively the property of attracted to men. Sorry, did I say that out loud? But no, it's very it's not true. Like, gay people look all kinds of ways, y'all. Like,
yeah.
And you can be hella androgynous or like a super feminine man and still be straight. You can be a super masculine woman and still be straight. Like, biodiversity, people, look it up. It's the only healthy way to have an ecosystem.
Amen. Well, let's get into our next segment, which is ponytails, as everyone knows at this point, hopefully. But if you're just joining for the first time, ponytails with tails spelt TALES is my icebreaker segment where I ask my guests to tell a tale with a ponytail in their head. I give the name of the topic, and then we both share our ponytail. Now, at this point, I'm not going to share my ponytail. Well, actually, I might. We'll see. But if you got a ponytail suggestion or a tale you'd like to share, feel free to email me at theselfwaremillennial@gmail.com. So the ponytail topic for today is recalling an experience that solidified that you were polyamorous. Doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be something small, something big, something small. But I'll let you go first.
So this is a wonderful question. I love ponytails. I came prepared.
I didn't. But that's okay. I kind of have something going on. So that's
I love how lenient you are and how, like, my favorite part about ponytails is people without a lot of hair will get so creative with it. So keep shining, J.Mix. Keep shining.
Thank you.
So I knew I was polyamorous when I had an affair.
Okay. Hey.
A whole ass affair. I was living with my first girlfriend. We've been together for like a year and a half, 2 years. And I think towards the end, like when we were breaking up, we were talking about opening the relationship. I'm not sure if that was before or after I started having sex with somebody else. Semi-regularly. It was a close friend of mine. My sex life in my relationship, in my primary partnership, wasn't that great. And I am a Gemini. Hi, my name is Ashley and I'm a Gemini. And most of what you've heard about us is true. So I have needs, but at the time, I didn't know how to express these needs to my partner.
Gotcha.
And so I practiced what we now know is unethical polyamory, aka traditional non-monogamy, aka cheating, being a lion-ass, cheating asshole. I did it. So no shade to anybody out here living that life. I no longer agree with it because we have options now. It's 2021. why are we cheating on each other? It doesn't, I don't know, when you could just rewrite the rules, you know?
Yep.
Fast forward to when I was getting divorced and I fell in love with another woman, and she was definitely monogamous. And we started off kind of like hooking up, then like girlfriends ish, but I still had this guy that I was sleeping with occasionally. He literally meant nothing to me, J.Mix. He was just a big, beautiful black man. And I was like in the process of getting divorced from this very lame, very like middle of, I don't want to say lame because that's ableist, but just ain't shit. Just kind of like, yeah, he was white, but that doesn't mean he's better or a prize or anything. Like, I didn't marry up. Let's just say that. I didn't marry up. And I also knew that I wasn't monogamous. Like, I cheated on my fiance just to see if he would notice. You know, he and I were open on paper, but he was the kind of open where it's like, I don't want you to have sex with any other men. Women
One penis policy.
One penis policy. And if men are off limits, but women are not,
what about trans women?
Misogynist. Exactly. What about trans women? I don't know. We didn't get that far because we weren't secure enough in our relationship for him to feel comfortable with me like pursuing another romantic bond because we were codependent. We'll get to that. but with this new girl, I'll call her Nicole. With Nicole, it started off really casual. Then the feelings got like more and more intimate. And I'm like, yo, babe, I'm falling in love with you, girl. Mm-hmm. And she kind of interpreted that as, oh, so we're monogamous now. And I was like, back. Mm-hmm. Can I please just have this side piece? Like, you're where my heart is. You're the one that I want to build relationship with. And she did this thing, which is pretty common when people want to open up from a partnership or open up from a couple, where she's like, okay, I'll try. But I could kind of feel in her affect that she wasn't really feeling it. And 2 weeks later, we broke all the way up because the attitude was just like real nasty for 2 whole weeks. And we talked about it, and she was just like, no, I'm not here for it. And I was heartbroken, but I would rather have had that really tough conversation and break up than to cheat on her. I don't agree with cheating. Like, and I don't agree with being the other woman either. We'll talk about my sex life on Patreon. So
okay. And the only way polyamory works is if everybody is aware of everything and everybody is cool with everything. It involves a lot of communication, and that's just something that, unfortunately, I say a lot of people in our society, because of the toxic and monogamous world that we live in, it's it's just so much more difficult to just be honest with yourselves. That you can't be honest with others if you can't be honest with yourselves.
That part.
So
that part, awareness.
Yes.
Awareness. We're going to talk about awareness.
All right. Well, I don't know if I want to recall my experience because I think we've all, I don't know if I've said it on here. I've definitely said it on my Patreon. And I think, like, I'm not sure if this person still listens to my podcast. But they already know what is happening with all that.
It's in episode 23.
It is in episode 23, isn't it? Okay, cool. Well, great. Y'all go back to episode 23 and listen to the experience that I solidified.
It's juicy too. Y'all should really go check it out.
It's very juicy, I guess. But we can talk about it a little bit more on my Patreon for sure. So let's get into the topics, or I guess, because a lot of us that are listening here for probably the first time may not understand the reasoning or the history behind how we got to where we are now in terms of, like, even just being openly polyamorous ourselves. So I want to reiterate some of the things that we kind of talked about in episode 23, just a little bit. I want to refer most specifically to Sex at Dawn by Chris Ryan, right? Is it Chris Ryan?
Chris Ryan and Cacilda Jethá.
Yeah.
Jethá.
So basically, the premise behind that entire book, which I still have not read the entire thing, but I read like a nice bunch of it. But I believe Ashley. Okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna let you go. Go ahead, Ashley.
Sex at Dawn
Yes.
is so lit. And I can understand why it took you a bit to get through it. And if you want to like read the first sentence and the last sentence of every paragraph just so you can like get through it, I understand. It's pretty, because it's written by doctors. It's an anthropological text. Like, we are not just saying the prehistoric origins of modern sexuality to sell books. We are actually going into chimp research, bonobo research of indigenous cultures that are still alive. And nobody's monogamous.
Right.
Nobody's monogamous.
Yep.
Chimpanzees and bonobos share like 95 to 98% of our DNA, our genetic structure. And socially, we've been using chimp research and bonobo research to sort of like justify or make nature, the nature versus nurture argument about like human behavior.
Yeah.
And one thing that really stuck with me about chimp research was how before the researchers got there, or when the researchers first got there, there was so little violence in the chimpanzee cultures, like even between chimpanzee tribes, until they thought to themselves, you know, it's kind of a lot of work to like go out into the jungle and chase these chimps and try to record their behavior. Why not bring them closer to us? So they had like this stockpile of food and they would observe how the chimps interacted there. Mm-hmm. Once you consolidate all the resources, that's when the violence starts, because before there was nothing to fight over. Right. Everyone had enough space to just sort of live and let live. And also in prehistoric humanity, there were not 8 billion of us.
No.
All piled on top of each other. We did not live in cities. We did not live in apartment buildings. We was just out here hunting, gathering, sharing. People who didn't share were ostracized. People who started to hoard stuff were like completely made fun of and kicked out of the community, maybe. Mm-hmm. And there was another thing that I read when I was refreshing my memory about this, of how, I think it's in bonobo culture, how the females would protect each other. You know, if you're under attack, it's like, no, not today, not in these streets. It's like those Indian women with the red sticks, right? Mm-hmm. It's like we got like each other's back.
I think it was like if a male bonobo was like acting up around a female bonobo, like all the other females would come and be like, nah, don't you think?
Not today. You know, not today.
I think they also even use, I mean, because like sex was just so free at that point, like they even use that to just kind of calm them down. It's like, you just need to have
right. Just come over here, babe. Why are you yelling at Mary? Come over here. Let me rub your shoulders for a bit. Yeah. And same with human society. Sex had been conflict resolution strategy. Chimps do it, bonobos do it, married people do it.
They do it. Yeah.
We still do it. It's just not
even married people, like just folks that are just, partnered people, you know?
Everything. Right. Like I said, it's like, oh, are you upset? Let me give you a little something rub, whether it's your shoulders or your feet or whatever.
In general, even like the bonobo children, like they get to a certain age and like, you know, they go off on their own and they may not necessarily know who their mother and father is because the whole community is taking care of them.
Exactly. And to get it out of the apes and into the Homo sapiens, it takes a village to raise a child. So who cares who's the baby daddy? Yeah. You know, there are some societies where if you are pregnant and you don't continue to have sex with other men, you're not being a good mother. Like, you need the seed to plant the seed. You need the seed to water the seed. You need the seed to fertilize the seed. And all these men that you're in relations with, they're all basically brothers to each other, maybe lovers too, whatever. But they're also all fathers to that child. Like,
yeah.
I was raised by my mom and my grandma, and that's it. And they did great. I also do not think that 2 adults is enough to raise any one child. And termination. I almost said terminology. What? Colonize it. The termination that it takes a village to raise a child it's not a uniquely African concept, but we know it in America because of enslaved Africans.
Yeah.
And because of chattel slavery, we continued the practice of, oh, if this child needs to be fed, I'm gonna feed this child. I don't care who the parents are. Like, we are in this together. We are all family. P.S. You know, my children might be in Alabama while I'm in Virginia. So, like, your children can help fill that void for me. I can be a third or fourth mother to your child. And a lot of our issues stem from childhood.
Yep.
And it's not that, I mean, some people, I don't like to judge anything or anyone, but a lot of so-called bad parenting could just be incompatibility.
Yes.
You know, what did I say at the coffee shop? I was like,
you said
sometimes you have coniferous children raised in deciduous families.
Yeah, not just because you have, not every parent is compatible with their children or something like that. I remember writing it down as a quote. Let me see if I can find it.
Like, when you have a child, it's not this empty vessel that you get to program to be your perfect little robot. It's a gift that you unwrap and you unfold and you get to know them. It's a relationship.
Yeah.
And sometimes people ain't compatible. And it sucks if you're trapped in a house with two, like, really extroverted parents and you're like a really introverted child, and there isn't like a third or a fourth or a fifth adult out here who's like, no, it's cool. We can stay at home while they go to the birthday party. And we can
just someone that actually understands them.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. I haven't counted myself out of the motherhood race, because it is kind of a race. Like, in our society, it's like, oh my God, you got to find love so that you can find marriage, so that you can get a baby in a baby carriage. And at this point, I'm like, I want a community of people. Like, I want several love partners, some with children of their own, because, like, I'm an only child. And so my, like, baby plan is 3 or more or not, right? I feel like I missed out so much of conflict resolution, right? I was the submissive in my dyad because it was mostly me and my mom, and because we live in a society where there has to be dominance and submission. I mean, on paper, it really doesn't have to be that way, but I had to learn how to communicate my needs. I had to learn how to communicate directly and not passively. And a lot of those skills I learned from polyamory. And the book that we're going to be really talking about, because Sex at Dawn, that's very nature focused, but the More Than Two, a practical guide to ethical polyamory, that's more on the nurture side. And it really is practical in that they take you through exercises. They talk about, like, jealousy, communication, meeting your needs, communicating your needs, different structures, different hierarchies or lack thereof. One thing they say as an alternative to hierarchy is empowerment, because just going back to me and my mom, there was a hierarchy because I was not empowered to make decisions about our life. I mean, a little bit. She wasn't super domineering or whatever. But at the end of the day, you know, it's still very, like, mother-child's dyad.
Yeah. Let's talk about possession, because I think that that's important, at least within the listeners that we have. That's a lot. It goes within, like, the jealousy that you were just discussing a little bit, but I would like to just kind of hone in on, like, where our need for, or where our jealousy comes from and how it ties into our our desires to possess others. Even though I wouldn't say that is a natural instinct. I don't think that personally, I don't feel that that's a natural instinct. I think that's learned. And I think that within our own society, we've definitely learned that.
I'm going to go off book for a minute because when I've worked on healing my own like feelings of envy, one of the gurus that I follow on YouTube University, Teal Swan, she has an episode about jealousy, and she defines it as like the difference between desire and envy is when you're envious, you don't believe that you can have the thing that you desire. And if it's something like time, say your partner's on a date with another person and you're at home, not on a date with another person, it's true that you can't have exactly what they're having right now, but you can soothe those sort of abandoned or like worthless or whatever shitty feelings that you might have in your heart. First of all, they're valid. They probably stem from something that happened to you in childhood. But you have the power now to work out what is it that I need right now. And when your partner comes back, say like, hey, I need to spend some quality time with you because you being on that date brought up some jealous feelings for me. And also like while they're gone, remind yourself that you can have that, you know, like they're not going to leave you and never come back. And if they do, it's okay. Like you can find somebody else. One of my favorite things to quote from the book is the abundance versus scarcity model of love, and how a lot of times we get jealous because we have this scarcity mindset. Like I said yes to the first person who asked me to marry them because I was like, well, who else is going to ask? Especially the notion that you only get like one love of your life, maybe two. Yeah. Every time you hop onto a streetcar, you can meet the love of your life. Every time you like walk down the aisle of the grocery store, you can meet the love of your life. If you're Erykah Badu in that amazing song/music video, because she kept doing it, like she kept being reincarnated and then finding the love of her life and then being like, oh damn, but you though. Yeah. It's like, maybe you're not monogamous.
Right.
When you talk about like the default, the algorithm, the what we see all the time being very heteronormative and very like, hey, don't you want to get married?
Right.
It's because whoever they is, like the powers that think they be, or whatever woke people call them, they want us to partner up. They want us to amass wealth. They want us to hoard it. They don't want us to share it. They want us to think like, oh, well, this is my husband. This is my house. These are my kids. Sorry, your children are starving. I need to take care of my own.
Yeah. All on the premise of what we think is love.
Yes. All on the premise of what we think is love, which is not.
Love is not possessive.
It's not. Yeah. Love kind of can't be possessive. I mean, it's a little possessive in that, like, I see you as a part of myself. Yeah. But for me, when you were like, what is love? I raised my hand because I was like, love is really wanting somebody else to be happy and wanting to see them thrive and wanting to see them fulfilled. Yeah. And another quote from More Than Two that I say all the time is that the people in the relationship are so much more important than the relationship itself.
Yes.
Right. And so if I were Erykah Badu's wife and she came home and she was like, girl, I saw this man today. He was really into me. I was just feeling something from my body that was really attracted to him. I'd be like, get it, girl. You know, bring him over for dinner. Maybe I want to meet him. Maybe I don't. And there's no wrong way to do poly.
I was talking to my boyfriend just this morning, or I think he's like sent me a really cool text message that was like talking about like a Tinder person that they were talking to. And like, I just like the fact that we could talk about like us talking to other people over Tinder, like it's nothing, you know? And like, understanding like where their frustrations or their happiness is coming from, like gives me happiness or frustration as well, because I care about them, because I love them. But like that's somewhere where you have to first go back to episode 23, everybody. I'm not about to repeat myself, but let's talk about homophobia. Yes, let's get into it, because I feel like the Black community, we still choose to ignore that we have a big part in what homophobia is in 2021.
And pop culture too.
And pop culture,
gay legislation is for white people. Hello.
Yeah.
There's probably more gay Republicans now that they have the right to legally marry. You know, like, wow. It's like white feminism, where instead of liberating everybody from all the chains, it's like, how about you just give me access to what landholding white men have always had?
Hello.
Because there isn't that hindsight, that like consciousness, that peripheral vision of, oh wait, there's other people on this planet. We can't just make money, fuck bitches. Like,
yeah.
Everybody matters. Everybody really does matter. But you know, a lot of folks, once you give them rights, they're like, okay, whatever. Like, let's not talk about poverty. Let's not talk about racism. We have gay marriage. Like, what else do you want? And all that is like, now you can amass property together. And if something happens to you, your partner gets your property. But it's sad to see, because I'm 33 and I came out in 2008. And even just between then and now, the gay community, it kind of, like, it exists, and you're always free. We are always free to build community where we can. But for the most part, it's become very individualistic. And it's like, now that we the white gay people are acceptable in society, like, we're not marginalized anymore, so we don't have to stand together in solidarity with everybody else. Meanwhile, queer people of color are still not accepted. And guess what? Like I said, visibility matters so much.
Yeah.
When you think of like LGBTQ plus people, I don't see Black people. And I'm Black and queer. All of my friends, most of my queer friends are Black and brown. And yet when you think of like that archetype, it's like 2 gay men or 2 gay women, cis women, cis men, right? Like, what about the trans folks? And what about the non-binary folks, right? And what about us is our communities and our roots of Christianity, heavy quotation marks. I don't know if it's respectability. I don't know if it's like, we've tried so hard to be respectable and now you want to go do some gay shit, like making us look bad. Like, why? I don't have answers. I'm coming with questions. Like, why choose homophobia? Why, when
are we talking
people?
Sorry, I was wondering if we were speaking directly to the Black community or just everybody.
Specifically the community of color, but I mean, it's Black History Month. Let's talk to Black people.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know the Asian folks' like colonization journey well enough to really speak on it, but I know our colonization journey very well. I'm hopefully beginning to realize, especially with the toxic masculinity conversation and with like the dismantling white supremacy that's finally starting to happen, we're realizing that we've been chasing this dream of poison. Like, we've been fighting each other to dehumanize ourselves so that we can make money. And part of dehumanization is just like narrowing your self-concept of like who you're allowed to be, right? Like,
that is my victory bell career in a nutshell.
You know, and like growing up a little girl, my mom is butch as hell, but we still had to wear pantyhose to go to church. And I'm like, but why? And she couldn't answer. And so I stopped wearing pantyhose to church. Mm-hmm. And when I told her I was in love with a woman, she was like, you know, it's a sin, right? And I'm like, the church we went to said God is love and explained to me how loving anybody can be a sin, and she couldn't. And so she was really uncomfortable with it for many years until one of her friends said, hey, Karen, you talk all this tolerance bullshit, but you're loving your daughter conditionally. And she's always been very vocal about how much she loves me. I came out so good. I came out so well because I was showered with love and affection, verbally, mostly verbally, and that's cool. That's her love language or whatever. But then when I was queer, it was like, ugh, and it was really hard. And when she finally like came around in like 2016, I told her about Nicole. I was like, you know, that really means a lot for me to hear you say that, because I had a whole relationship with a woman that you know nothing about. And it was a really important relationship to me because she was with me while I was getting divorced from my ex-husband. Mm-hmm. And you knew nothing about it because you chose not to want to hear about it.
Yeah.
And my current girlfriend, her family is very homophobic. And it's confusing because her mom and her sister are like really buddy with her also gay cousin. But when she came out, it was like, first, very, very no. Now they're at a point where it's like, okay, we accept you, but make sure you dress extra femme when you come to meet the family. Make sure you don't post any gay shit on Facebook or on Instagram. Make sure, like, they're worried about what the family's gonna say, and I'm like,
yeah, no, that's something that is definitely, and I wanted to go into this a little bit because I feel like even just within our own family structures, but this is another big thing just in the Black community in general, is like we don't want to come out to them and be like, yo, I'm poly, yo, I'm queer, yo, da 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 da, because like you feel like they will now start loving you conditionally, not unconditionally. And I mean, that is the case, and that's probably what's going to happen, but it's kind of like, and I guess the other thing is unfortunately, I wonder, like, what do you do then? Like, do you just have to prep for it? And then how can we, as our organic, natural selves, find ways of, I guess, helping them understand? Or if that is that entirely up to our family members to kind of come out their shell and like ask you questions? Because like, I know me personally, I'm like, I know who I am. I'm not changing it. I know there's still some family members that may be a little bit more suspect. I got a bunch of church members that are just like ignoring my posts where I talk about how I'm queer or da 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 da, and they'll comment on the ones where I just post a nice picture of myself and I don't really put that in there. So like, I know they're seeing it, and I know they're probably talking behind my back, and I don't really care, but it's just like, okay, I see where your discomfort is coming from. And like, I don't know if it's up to me or if it's up to them to like come out of their shell. I don't know.
It's an opportunity. The ancient China, I don't know if it's still the character that they use, but in written Chinese, the character for challenge is the same character as the one for opportunity. And when you come out to your family as queer and they're homophobic, it's challenging. It's also an opportunity for them to examine why they believe what they believe. Just like with polyamory, it's like, why do I believe that you can't be committed to more than one person? Like, why do I believe that love only looks this one way? Why do I believe that it's wrong for a man and another man, or a woman and another woman, to be together? Why do I believe it's wrong for someone to express their gender in a way that biology chose not to express? Right? And first of all, well, just a quick parenthetical note is that there's more than 2 chromosomal sexes. So fuck out of here with your chromosome argument, because you can be XXY. You can, I didn't expect to talk about like Klinefelter syndrome, Turner syndrome. Like, there's like 5 different ways to be biologically intersexed. which is why I like to say queer, because if you say LGBTQIA, RSTUVWXYZ, like you're still leaving somebody out. So queer is the umbrella.
Yes.
Just like polyamory is the umbrella. And I choose to say queer because we really are all in this together.
Yeah.
As soon as you start dividing people, like we have this very conditioned, very quick, and like if you're out in the jungle trying to survive, hierarchy, categorizing things in a hierarchy might serve you really well. But when it comes to people, it only leads to pain and suffering. It really does. So we're here, we're queer, we're family. We have the same struggles of, really the struggle is to liberate humanity from its own shackles. I feel like trans people are saving the world by letting everybody know out here, like, you can choose to be who you are. Like, I feel when I say I'm a proud cis Southern woman, it's because I know I have the choice, right? Yeah. Like my married friends with a girlfriend, it's like, I believe in their marriage so strongly because every day they're choosing to be together. Yes. You know, like my relationship with Jessica and my paramour, Jay, every day we're choosing to be together. It's not, oh, I committed, so now I have to stay. It's a choice. Like everything's a choice. How you feel, like, I'm not saying that homosexuality is a choice. Like your desires come from your body and they are authentic and real. How you choose to express them or not, that's a choice. Yes. And somehow, some way in the Black community, we're given this message that like you should choose to suffer in silence, stifle yourself, try to fit this mold, whether it's because Black love just looks like one Black man, one Black woman.
I wanted to quickly kind of go over a nice quote that I wrote down when we were talking the other week, because I think this is kind of important with just the whole idea of how, like, you know, marriage, people like to brand it, you know, this person should be your best friend and da 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 da. You said, sometimes when a man says you're my best friend, it means you're the person I spend the most time with. I want to unpack that. I agree with it. The Will to Change. Is that the Bell Hooks book?
That's the Bell Hooks book.
Yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just loading the gun. I'm loading. The arrow is knocked onto the bow. I'm ready. You do you. I'm ready whenever you are.
I really like that quote, and I want to hear what you have to say about it because I think it's so real, and I think that a lot of people want to consider their best friends their spouses or, you know, their primary partners, but that may not always be the case, and people need to be a little bit more honest about that. You know,
it's yet another expectation that society places on your marriage.
Yes.
Like, I'm not totally anti-marriage. I just think we should know what the hell we're getting into. Like, if I were to get married again, it would be to consolidate property. It would be to like make sure I know where my kids are going if something happens to me. You know,
some people say best friend is more of like a proximity thing and not like a, you know, more of like an emotional or like an intellectual connection, or it's based on proximity. It's not based on, you know, anything else.
Yeah. I had a whole 9-month relationship with a man that I didn't even like. He didn't like me. Like, whenever I tried to talk about psychological stuff or emotional stuff, crickets, you know?
Yeah.
There just wasn't a lot of depth. Our relationship was mostly physical. But after we started spending a lot of time together, he was like, oh, so we're boyfriend and girlfriend now, right? And I'm like, do we have to be? Like, I'm doing the whole solo poly thing, you know, like I'm not really trying to be tied down or whatever. And he's like, well, I don't want to tie you down. I just want you to be my girlfriend because patriarchy. And he didn't want to know about my other partners, which is a boundary that lots of poly people do. It's not my style. I like what Jessica and I have where, like you were saying, the giddiness when she talks about the people she has crushes on, or like the people that we have mutual crushes on. And
yeah.
And like we renegotiate boundaries too. Like if I've shared too much about my paramour, like she'll let me know. If she's not sharing enough about like what she needs from me in the relationship, I'm like, yo, girl, I'm a recovering codependent. And for you to not communicate directly with me brings out the part of me that is reading between the lines, brings out the part of me that, oh, well, if she doesn't feel safe to talk about her needs, then it must not be safe for me to talk about my needs. So let's just tiptoe around each other and just sort of assume that we're going to read each other's minds. The whole world would be a better place if there were more movements like hashtag she is not your rehab. It's this barber from New Zealand. I think we talked about this at the coffee shop.
Yes.
And it encourages men to like let it out, like feel your feelings. And instead of just raging out at somebody who's weaker than you, whether it's your female in your life or the children in your life, talk about it, cry about it. Like let another man hold you while you cry.
Yeah.
And not feel homophobic about it. I have this series that I just started on YouTube where I'm reading this book in my lingerie because will men listen to me if I'm not topless? Comment below. Right? Right. And the first point I make is that like men are not the problem. Patriarchy is the problem.
Yes.
Okay? Like men are human beings with a full spectrum of emotionality that they have beaten out of them from extremely young ages. Women have just become more like men. Like we now also suffer from toxic masculinity, and fucking hookup culture has become the norm. I just found out that I'm demisexual because I like to have some kind of intimacy before we do physical intimacy. Like, because I want to get to know you before we smash, I get a label for that. Like,
right.
What's normal if I'm demisexual? Like, I'm horny. Oh God, I said that out loud. But like, I am a horny Gemini. I'm panamorous. I'm polyamorous. Like, bring all the boys and girls and babies to the yard, okay? But you must be this emotionally intelligent to ride, because I am not about to share my body with people who aren't in touch with themselves and aren't in touch with like, why do you want to have sex with me? It's not just a physical need. Like there's more to me than this body. And unfortunately, as men, it's all external. It's all about like what you can do, what you look like, how much can you bench press, how much pussy you getting, or dick. Like gay men are not excluded from any of this.
No, they're not. That's a misconception about being polyamorous or non-monogamous that a lot of us grapple with. When we come out and tell someone, yo, we're polyamorous, people just expect us to be sex grave people who literally will have sex with anybody whenever we feel like it, that we don't respect our bodies, that we don't believe in a higher power, like just little stuff like that. Like those come, like all of those different things that come with just saying that you are free to have sex with whoever you want, and that the people that you are around that you have sex with aren't possessing you, or they are okay with it as well. Like that's literally what that's what we're saying. But the way that they're seeing it is like, oh, you're just cheating, or you're doing,
Yeah.
And
it comes from like, again, with a narrow mindset where it's like, if you're not doing monogamy this one special way, you must not be doing like it. It's not that much different from a regular relationship. It's exactly the same as having a regular relationship, only with more people.
Yeah.
Your regular monogamous relationship isn't perfect. And my two current relationships are not perfect. I mean, they are because we talk about things as they come up.
Yeah.
And that book, More Than Two, is a great resource, whether you're going to be poly or not, because it does talk about like meeting your needs and reaching out and like talking and negotiating things, time management, et cetera, et cetera.
I want to go into our last segment, which is J.Mix Explains It All. But yeah, it's an advice column where we basically give feedback to listeners on topics that interest us. In this case, it's going to be polyamory. For this, I kind of just wanted us to offer advice to listeners who might be questioning their livelihoods now that they've been listening to us talk about, you know, how we live our lives in a freer way than, well, I guess our perception is that it is freer, but yeah, how should they approach this? Let's say if they are already in a partnership with somebody versus if they are, let's say, solo and they just want to, you know, kind of dive into being solo poly, but don't know where to start.
That's a great question. I wanted to touch on the fact that you said, what's in our perception freer, because there can be a lot of freedom in monogamy. And just like I think being polyamorous is the only way I can imagine my life. Because, like I said, I'm a horny Gemini. I want all the chocolates. I want all the chocolates in the chocolate box. Right? From a young age, I said to myself, you know, for me to not date a woman just because of her sex would be just as whack as me to not date somebody because of their race. You know, like people are people. And for some people, monogamy works for them. If you feel free and fulfilled in your monogamous lifestyle, go for it. Do that. And I promise you, what's freeing about this conversation is letting people know that they have a choice. It is not one way or the highway, right?
Yes.
And like you said, we're not just out here being ethical sluts. Some of us are. In these,
but even the ethical part of it, you know, like there's still a sense of respect in there. You know, there's still a sense of, you know, personal respect, but also respect for others. So it's like,
exactly, people are not just bodies.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, and for some,
but for some, you know, if you have that conversation with them, be like, hey, you're just gonna be a body to me tonight. We could be primary partners and be like, yo, I just wanna, you're just gonna be my toy for tonight.
Body
you know?
Party.
Yeah.
Body Party by Sierra.
Right.
It can be a body party.
Yeah.
And I would say do your research, but also do your practice. More than two is, I've mentioned it 1,000 times because it does give you like practical advice, but it doesn't have to be in relation to polyamory. I think that we as a society are, codependency is the norm. Like I didn't know that I was codependent until I started recovering from it. And I realized that that's what I thought love was. I thought love meant I'm going to sacrifice and woo 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 for you. And in return, you're going to treat me the way that I want to be treated, instead of like, hey, let's meet as equals and talk about what we need.
Yeah.
And if you are in a relationship and you want to consider opening it up, talk about it. Go really slow. Do the research together. I have a crush on a sailor, actually. We'll call him Zach. He is fine as hell. He's a yogi. He's ticking all of my boxes, right? And he's not monogamous. He's a slutty Gemini like me. His girlfriend, his partner of a while, is doing what Nicole was doing, where it's like, okay, I'll think about it. But instead of just like being salty about it, they're reading more than two together. And because I'm demisexual, I guess, I'm giving him that space to figure it out. Like I said, I ain't trying to take nobody's man. I'm not trying to be nobody's Jezebel. Yes, my cup is overflowing over here. I just want to add you to this ocean because it's not just an 8-ounce cup. Look, thank you. I think we could do a lot together. And we already have, like, just as friends. Yeah. We talked about love at first sight. Yes. At the coffee shop. We did. And for me, it's, first of all, you need awareness. Everybody go to ashleyjemini.com, book me for yoga, where we can talk about learning to tell the difference between thoughts that come from here and thoughts that come from here. Here being your mind versus here being your body. Mm-hmm. Because your ego your history, your past, your conditioning, your thoughts, all of that stuff lives in your brain. Our intuition, our feelings, what is true and real and present about who we are lives in our body. And sometimes you meet somebody and your bodies just sort of like magnetize towards each other. And what I've learned from lots of research is like practical research. I was meant to make a pun, but I fell in love at first sight with somebody a few years ago, and we've never been like together as boyfriend and girlfriend. Like we just really intensely enjoy our time together, whether we're holding hands with this person. I feel like I sound crazy when I talk about the physical effect that he has on me.
Go ahead.
But because of this man, I learned how to love somebody without possessing them. Like I felt this draw, and I did slip into my monogamous, codependent like patterns where I was like, I have to have children with this man. We have to be together forever. How do I make that happen? And it just wasn't going to happen. But I loved him. I still love him so much that I want him to be free. Like you wouldn't be happy tied down. So I'm not going to be the one to do it. Like, what do I actually need? Okay, I need more sex more often. That's when I started going out with a guy that I didn't like for 9 months. The sex was good. And then I slipped into a pattern and I learned from it, right? Yeah. So I want to say that love at first sight feeling doesn't necessarily mean you're meant to have sex with them. Ooh. I did my research because like I was having these crazy feelings. I was like, I thought love at first sight was a myth. I thought monogamy was the devil. Like, what is this feeling? And the feeling is like that person is meant to be in your life for a great reason. And for me, that man, like, I thought I was going to say his name on the internet, but I'm just going to leave him anonymous.
So yeah, it's fine. I know who you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about. You know exactly why. Yeah. Girl. But there have been other times when I felt that feeling towards people and they've just been really great non-sexual intimate partners. Like I have had friendships with men that like I thought I wanted to have sex with them, but the desire wasn't mutual. And instead we built non-sexual intimacy over the course of many years. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a monogamous relationship like Erykah Badu in that song, and you feel that pull towards somebody, but you don't even allow yourself to see like, why, what is it about this person? You might not even have sex. It's just about like, why are you making decisions about what you do with your life based on somebody else's insecurity?
Whew!
Yo.
Bro! Flashbacks. I'm getting like all the flashbacks as you were talking. Y'all see why I have Ashley on this? Because like, oh my gosh. Every time she be dropping these gems, like my light just flashes before my eyes and I'm like, oh my gosh.
If I want to leave y'all with 5 tips, not just for love and like relationships, but just in general, awareness, acceptance, forgiveness, unity, and love. Don't rush forgiveness. If you can't forgive somebody, there's a good reason why. And you deserve to feel your feelings. You really do. But don't just let them fester. Because for me, anyway, it doesn't feel good to be mad at somebody or whatever. Like, I don't enjoy icky feelings. So I work through them. Meditation and yoga is like meditation in motion is one of the most useful tools ever because it allows you to separate like who you are from your thoughts. And it allows you to be able to hear the difference between your thoughts and your feelings. And I don't know how I would have been as successful at relationships if I hadn't also had the meditation practice underneath it all.
Give your social so that everybody can follow you because they will be after this. I already know it.
Oh gosh. I mean, maybe. So I am Ashley Jemini on Instagram. That is ASHLEYJEMINI. And AshleyJemini.com, also spelled with a J. That is my yoga profile. That's my yoga business. Also on YouTube, Ashley Jemini, Gemini with a J. There will be some yoga videos, but there was just something about 2021 and 2020 that I was like, y'all need feminism. I look over to my left, I look over to my right, like the gays, the straights, women, men, babies. I mean, honestly, transgender people, I feel like they're good. They just need support. And I'm here to give them yoga for real. Like transgender folks, I'm just here to support y'all. But everybody else, really, we have a lot of emancipation to do. Like,
oh my gosh. And make sure y'all check out Reading in My Lingerie on YouTube. Is that what it's called? Reading in My Lingerie?
Yeah. Yes! Yeah, Reading in My Lingerie.
Yes.
Reading bell hooks in my lingerie. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, y'all, if you have any suggestions on future things that you'd like me to cover on the Self-Aware Millennial, feel free to email me at theselfawaremillennial@gmail.com or follow and DM me on Instagram at the Self-Aware Millennial. And while you're at it, if you're on Apple Podcasts, give the Self-Aware Millennial 5 stars to help with those algorithms, because it also helps my imposter syndrome when you do that. So so also, just so y'all are aware, as y'all been hearing, I'm going to be adding more of our conversations to the Patreon in the next couple of weeks. So check that out. That's www.patreon.com/theselfaware-millennial. All right, everybody. And also, I should also mention, it's going to be Mardi Gras. Like, Mardi Gras is going to be like the week when this podcast premieres. So I want to wish everybody
happy Yardi Gras.
Happy Yardi Gras. Happy Mardi Valentine's Gras Day. Got to throw them all in there. But I will talk to y'all later. Hope y'all have a great week. Bye.